Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going over questions that I usually get at the gun range and gun shop.
What's a good beginner's gun?
A good beginner's gun. So there's a lot of thought behind this. And the biggest thing for me, for my students, or for customers that come into the gun shop that want a beginner's gun, I usually start by asking what they're going to use the gun for. If the answer is for the range and for home defense, the best type of gun, in my opinion, would be a larger, heavier gun. For example, this is a hypothetical, but if we took a little guy like this, right, and then a massive tank like this, and hypothetically, let's say they shoot these exact same rounds, so they're the same caliber. The smaller, lighter gun is going to have much more recoil than the larger, heavier gun. Therefore, when someone is trying to decide what gun they want to get for the very first time, I always push them in the larger, heavier gun direction, because the frame, the larger frame, the heavier weight of the gun shooting the same caliber is going to have a much more smoother shooting experience. It's going to have much less recoil than the smaller gun. It's going to be able to, feel more comfortable in the hands, in the sense of you have more to hold on to when you have a larger frame. If you look at this little guy as I hold it, you see my pinky's not on it. It stops right here in the center of my palm. It's a very small gun, ideal for concealed carry. But then you take this much heavier, larger gun, I can get my whole entire hand around it. It goes way past where my palm is. So by being able to hold on to the gun like that and have more control over it, it's a much more enjoyable experience to shoot. You got to think about the fact that when you're on the range, you're shooting, whether it be just 50 rounds or hundreds of rounds. You want something that you're going to actually enjoy shooting. If the gun's going to be flipping in your hands, there's going to be a lot of recoil, it's not that controllable, it's not going to be fun to shoot on a day-to-day kind of basis. When you look at it in terms of home defense, you want to have that control, you want to have that stability. God forbid you ever had to defend yourself. You want to make sure that you are in control of the gun's not in control of you, and your comfort level really determines that.
What's the difference between a single action only and single double trouble action firearms?
That's fun.
What's the difference between single action only and single double trouble action firearms? What is a single double? Is it like a double in and out?
Yeah.
What's the difference between a single action only and a single double action?
How do you mess up every single time in a different way, Bo? How does this happen?
What's the difference between a single action only and a double single action?
Okay, so the difference between single action firearms and double single action firearms is how the hammer works. So, for example, this 1911. This 1911, unloaded, can only be fired when that hammer is back. So, that hammer gets pushed back every single time that the next round goes in. So every time the gun cycles, it actually pushes back this hammer, making it a single action only gun in the sense that it can only be fired when the hammer is back. If that hammer is sitting forward, like so, it's a dead gun. Can't be fired. So the hammer has to be back, and the only thing that makes this a single action is the hammer does one motion, and that is going forward. Again, it gets pushed back by the slide going back, and the only motion that this hammer makes when you fire the gun is forward, like so. That's one single action. So this means this is a single action firearm. Single and double action means that the firearm has the ability to do both. So the hammer can be back for it to be single action, but also this gun can fire when the hammer is up, making it a double action. One motion, two motion, right? Single and double action. So it can be fired, like I said, with the hammer back, or it can be fired when the hammer is up.
Are there just double action guns?
There are just double action guns. Yes, in fact, there are some revolvers out there that have a hammer, but it's very small. It's, again, meant for concealed carry. And because you cannot pull back on the hammer, it's too small to kind of reach and pull back on that hammer, it ends up being a double action only firearm. There are also some SIGs that are semi-automatic, in particular the SIG P250. That is a .380 caliber, double action only semi-automatic firearm.
So then what's the difference between that and like a semi-automatic?
Well, so single action only and single double action come in semi-automatic. You do have revolvers that do single and double. You will not find, well, no, you will find. You'll find a single action only revolver, like an old cowboy gun. Those are single shot guns, so you actually have to pull back every time on that hammer in order to allow it to fire. But it just isn't limited to semi-automatics. It also is in revolvers.
What's the difference between a semi-automatic and a fully automatic?
The big discussion. Most people out there do think that all rifles are fully automatic, which they are not. Semi-automatic, let's say in a rifle, means that every time I pull the trigger, one round is fired. If it was a fully automatic rifle, that would mean that I would actually pull and hold the trigger, and as long as I'm holding that trigger, it is continuously firing rounds. Big misconception with a lot of our AR-15s these days is that they are all fully automatic. The reality of that is it takes a good while in order to get the proper licenses and permits to even have a fully automatic rifle, not only in California but in the nation in general. So all of our day-to-day rifles, including AR-15s, are all semi-automatics.
What is the process to buying a gun in California?
Okay, so the process to buying a gun in California, it's a couple different steps. First thing that you have to do in California is you have to take a firearm safety test. It's a 30-question test, true and false, multiple choice. You can miss 7 out of 30 in California for that test. What that does, once you pass that test, you're given a firearm safety card, and that firearm safety card has a number attached to it. That number directly connects you and that card, so that number is you. In order to buy a firearm in the state of California, you have to not only present your driver's license, but you also have to present that card or credentials that exempt you from obtaining that card. For example, law enforcement, or if you're a concealed weapons holder in the state of California, you are exempt from having to take the FSC, the firearm safety test. Once you're done with that, then you move on to the paperwork. So the paperwork is you're filling out what's called a Form 4473. That is a federal form that is used with the ATF. It'll ask you a bunch of different questions, ask for personal information, name, address, place of birth, things like that. Once you fill out all that paperwork, then at the gun shop, one of the employees will be running a background check on you. That is called the DROS system, Dealer Record of Sale. That process takes 10 days, so you have a 10-day wait to actually pick up your firearms. In the state of California, whether it be a private party transfer, a used gun, a new gun, whatever it is, if it's a firearm being sold in the state of California, you have to go through this process and wait 10 days to pick it up.
Is there an age minimum to buying
There is. So the age minimum in buying long guns, that includes rifles, lever actions, shotguns, bolt actions, semi-automatics like AR-15s, you have to be 18 years old in the state of California. For handguns, same thing, semi-automatics, revolvers, all of those sorts. Any handgun, you have to be 21 years or older to purchase that.
How do you transfer gun ownership?
So transferring gun ownership, there are a bunch of different ways to transfer gun ownership. Some examples are transferring gun ownership from a gun shop to a person, meaning just going into a gun shop and buying a gun. That just requires a normal background check through the DROS system and filling out your paperwork and waiting 10 days. The next way you can buy guns or transfer guns is from person to person. So if I found online a guy in California that wants to sell a SIG 229, for example, I can contact him, pay for the gun between he and I, and both of us actually have to go to a gun shop and fill out, again, the 4473 form, and do what's called a private party transfer. In California, private party transfers are $35 that either the seller or the buyer pays, but they do a background check on the seller, they do a background check on the gun, and they take information from the seller. And that process, again, a 10-day wait, just like you were buying a new gun. Another way you can do a transfer is what's called an intrafamiliar transfer. What that is it has to go down the line, meaning father to son, mother to daughter, father to daughter. It has to be immediately down the line.
It can't be up.
It can't, well, it can go up also, but it has to stay within that,
So it can't
that
be
column.
like father to like
To niece or nephew, exactly. That does not fall under the intrafamiliar transfer. It has to stay within that line. And what ends up happening there, it's kind of cool. You don't have to go through the 10-day background check, DROS system, all of that stuff. What you do have to do is you fill out an intrafamiliar transfer form with the Department of Justice, and you send them a check of $19. And that information gets sent to the California DOJ, and all it says is, this gun, and of course you have to write down exactly what it is, make, model, serial number, all that good stuff. This gun is going from person A to person B, so father to son, son to father, doesn't matter which way. But that information goes to the Department of Justice, and then they take that and transfer the gun, the title of the gun, from A to B that way.
What is a CCW and how do you get it? Why would you want a CCW? What's a good CCW gun? What is a good protective gun to keep at the home?
Is it recording right now?
Yep.
Oh, that's lovely.